I didn't call for seconders of those nominations, but yes, we'll put Eldon down for both those. Are there any further nominations? Are there any further nominations? Are there any further nominations? Then I declare nominations closed. Councillor McPhee, you are deputy chair. Councillor Rhino?
Thank you, everyone, for your confidence in me as chair. I appreciate it. Welcome, Staff Sergeant and your friend there. I haven't been introduced. So anyway, what we'll do is we'll turn it over to you for your RCMP quarterly report.
No, we have to do the oath of office.
Oh, excuse me, I overlooked that. Oath of office. Who's taking that one? Okay. Do they repeat it? Or just sign it?
Through you, Madam, Mr. Chairman. The councillors each have the oath of office on their desks. If they want to rise and say it, they can say it at the same time, or
I think we're clear if one does it at a time. Okay?
Okay, no problem. Okay. I, Carl Steve Shimanaki, municipality of the District of East Hants, swear, affirm that I will faithfully, diligently, and impartially execute and perform the duties required of me as a member of the East Hants Police Advisory Committee, and while I continue to hold office, I will, to the best of my judgment, skill, knowledge, and ability, carry out, discharge, and perform all the duties of my office faithfully, impartially, and according to the Police Act or any other act and any regulation, rule, or bylaw, and will not accept in the discharge of my duties disclose to any person any matter or evidence brought before the East Hants Police Advisory Committee. I so swear that I affirm.
Thank you. Can you sign that? Councillor McPhee, Councillor Tingley.
Lance, in the municipality of the District of East Hants, swear that I will faithfully, diligently, and impartially execute and perform the duties required of me as a member of the East Hants Police Advisory Committee. And while I continue to hold office, I will, to the best of my judgment, skill, knowledge, and ability, carry out, discharge, and perform all the duties of my office faithfully, impartially, and according to the Police Act or any other act, and any regulation, rule, or bylaw, and will not accept in the discharge of my duties disclose to any person any matter or evidence brought before the East Hants Police Advisory Committee, so help me God.
Thank you, Councillor Tingley. You'll sign that, and then we're good. Both councillors, welcome to the Police Advisory Committee. All right. Warden, you wish to speak before we get started?
Yes, just a question through you to, I'm not sure who on staff, but I do believe that all members of police advisory are required to have a police records check or criminal records check. I know it's been some time since I had mine, but I believe it was decided that we had to have the same checks done as public members do. So I just wondered if staff could look into that and let us know if those are required and how often they should be renewed if needed. Thank you.
Shirley, can you look into that, please? Find us an answer. Thank you. All right. Next order of business would be the RCMP quarterly report. Staff Sergeant Bushell, you're on. Oh, you just. There you. Okay.
Test, test. Good morning, everyone. With me today is my colleague Jared Ryan. Jared's one of our supervisors, but for the last couple of months, thank you. Thank you very much. He's been acting in the capacity of our operations NCO. That'll be continuing. You'll see in my report, but Martin Roy retired. It was he had an opportunity outside of the organization that came up on him very rapidly, and he jumped on it. So Martin has retired. We're very happy for him, and Jared has been stepping in as his replacement. So we're pleased to have Jared with us here today, and you'll hear from him on one of our slides. Okay, so our agenda for today. I'll start with the East Hants HR update. I'm going to speak very briefly on our commanding officer's priorities. A little bit about our community policing, operations update, where we'll hear from Jared. Talk about some calls for service from last meeting, and then we need to discuss a little bit about consultation for our upcoming annual performance plan. And then at the end, some thoughts and any questions that you may have. This is a late addition to the agenda. We did hear back, Shirley and I have been talking about the tour at the H Division headquarters. So I've got some feedback from them. I'm going to talk a little bit about that just before we wrap up with some questions. So to refresh everyone's memory, we have a total of 31 employees. That's 27 police officers, 4 detachment assistants. Our current staff shortage is illness. We have 4, and then we're waiting for 5 to transfer in. So our HR situation has improved since last time. Things that, to be specific, as I noted, Sergeant Roy has retired. We have received Constable J.P. Harvey. He's come from Shelburne, and he's a welcome addition to our ranks. Constable Preston Burns from Pictou has been identified as our new community policing officer to replace Terry Fogarty, and we're very much looking forward to his arrival. Public servant Rochelle Woods is en route from headquarters. She'll be taking one of the public servant staff roles that's currently vacant. And waiting to be named is 1 sergeant, 1 corporal, and 1 constable, but we hope to hear on those in the not too distant future. I've been in touch with the Department of Justice to determine what the status of our admin member positions are. The MOU is apparently back with the municipality, working through some final stages there. So I'm pleased to report that we have a lot of new senior leadership within the RCMP in Nova Scotia. Perhaps, you've been watching through the news. We've had a lot of retirements from our senior leaders, and because of that, a lot of uncertainty as to where and who would be arriving. So our new commanding officer is Assistant Commissioner Dennis Daly. Our criminal operations officer is Chief Superintendent Sue Black. The OIC of Halifax is Chief Superintendent Jeff Christie, and the OIC of Northeast Nova is Superintendent Dustin Ward. So these are the top 4 individuals in the division. And what's great is there's some key dynamics that I'll talk about. The stability, these are all seasoned, tested leaders. Assistant Commissioner Daly started his career in Nova Scotia, actually in New Minas. And from here, he went to New Brunswick, did some other posts, frontline, came back to Nova Scotia as the commanding officer's executive officer, where he got his commission, worked from there to Halifax District and then into the admin personnel officer role. So he is deeply, deeply immersed into the workings of H Division, knows the people, knows the priorities, and knows how to get us on and keep us on a steady keel. Chief Superintendent Black, she has extensive operation in UN missions, in Policy Center of Ottawa. I personally worked with her when I was up north in Iqaluit. I can speak to her professionalism and her dedication to the RCMP. She comes with a ton of leadership. Chief Superintendent Jeff Christie, he is a longstanding member of Nova Scotia. He's worked all around the province. Most notably, he was a commander in Eskasoni for many years, as well as a commander in Bible Hill. He's also worked in our criminal operations in Halifax for a long period of time. Jeff's last 2 posts have been in BC as well as up north, so he comes from the north with a great breadth of experience. And then Superintendent Dustin Ward, he's a member that once served in Sibaganagadie as a supervisor here. He knows the lay of the land. He did some excellent work in J Division as well. So we're getting some real heavy hitters that are closely tied to Nova Scotia and the people here in the province. They also have a very clear vision of the path forward, and I'm going to share a little bit with you about that as well. Dennis was very clear when he arrived the types of things that he's going to be looking to impart among all the employees is employee wellness. Looking after the members of the RCMP, because the healthier and the better managed we are, the better service that we can provide to the people of Nova Scotia. Policing standards, and you're probably aware of, you've been watching a lot of the things out of the MCC. There's been questions about policing standards within Nova Scotia. There's currently a policing review underway. What are the standards between the various police forces? Are they consistent? So Dennis will be working very hard to find uniform policing standards across the board, so that you can rest assured, no matter where you are in the province, you're going to be getting consistent and top-tier policing. Enhanced relationships with policing partners. We do have various locations or various agencies, policing agencies within the province, and he'll be looking to make sure that those relationships are extremely strong, but also with our municipalities, with our other government partners. Forgive me, I'll take a sec. Oh, no. Sorry. We're back one. Yeah, there we are. Forgive me. Proceed, Chair? Okay, thank you. So he's also, Dennis is, I know him well, and I know him to be a person who is very keen on building strong relationships with municipal governance, with provincial governance, with our business community within the province, with our communities throughout the province and the people within them. So you can rest assured that you're getting a commanding officer that is in it for all the right reasons, and he's going to bring an enhanced relationship with the people and the leaders of Nova Scotia. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about it we talk about the APP, our yearly planning. He wants to see strong consultation from your local police agencies with communities and the local governance. So we'll talk about that later. A quick note on the community policing. As I mentioned, Constable Preston Burns is coming. I've spoken directly with Constable Burns and talked to him about current initiatives as well as the future planning, which is robust, and we've talked about a number of times in the past. He's very excited about the role, very engaged. He's going to be the driver, and he knows this, of a lot of proactive efforts, specifically hitting root causes of crime and the risk factors thereof, and looking at crime prevention initiatives. So he's going to be front and center, and I look forward to bringing him here to introduce him to all of you when he arrives. A note about our East Hants Crime Prevention Seniors Police Academy that took place in the fall. It was a great success. The ones that the folks that attended gave us very strong feedback. Jarrett was in attendance at a couple of sessions as I was away, and Jarrett actually presented everyone with their certificates. And it was, like I say, I've had the opportunity to speak to a few participants, and they gave us extremely strong feedback. So we hope to do that again. Regarding our operations, fall's been very busy, as it normally is. Fall's a busy time for us, but as we move to winter, we hope things will slow down. Short shifts have always been augmented by overtime at no additional cost to the municipality. A big focus this year, you'll be happy to know, is updating our school action for emergencies, which we call our SAFE plans. And basically, these plans for every school within our jurisdiction, we have detailed plannings of their layouts, detailed notes about the key contact people in the area, so that our officers are able to respond in the case of any type of emergency or eventuality to our schools, and to ensure that we provide a rapid response for anything that takes place. So a lot of time was put at the front of the school year into those. Also, ATV enforcement activities. We've had the opportunity to borrow some ATVs from one of our neighboring detachments, Cumberland County, and we used those in a couple different activities over the fall. So that was good to get out with those. I'm going to turn it over to Corporal Ryan now, and he's going to talk a little bit about some success we've had since our last meeting with our street crime enforcement unit.
Good morning, everybody. I am Jared Ryan. As Staff Bushel here has said, I'm a corporal. I've been working here in Enfield in East Hants District since December of last year. So I've only been here just about a year, but been made to feel very welcome by the community. So I appreciate that. I'm here to talk about just a little project that we ran over the last few months with our street crime enforcement unit out of the Enfield office. And it was in conjunction with the integrated general investigation section in Halifax, which is integrated RCMP and Halifax Regional Police. Where this all kind of stemmed from was over the summer, we became aware of a group of individuals that were stealing a high amount of construction materials in the East Hants area, as well as the Colchester area, Halifax area, and really all over the province. There was really nowhere these guys weren't willing to go. And they were also stealing other things like utility trailers and so forth. So during this period, our street crime enforcement unit, our 2 members that worked there, started doing surveillance and other intelligence gathering techniques, worked on it for several weeks. Eventually, things started to link together. The integrated unit out of Halifax called us up. We started partnering with them, working with them as well. And this led to, by the end of it, in early November, November 2nd, we executed 5 search warrants, 4 of which were in the East Hants area. 1 was in Mount Uniacke, 2 were on Indian Brook, 1 was in Elmsdale, and then the 5th location was actually in Clayton Park, Halifax. But this was a major operation involving over 30 police officers that day. Executing 5 search warrants is all simultaneously is kind of it's a big project. It went very successfully. 4 people were arrested. Several vehicles were seized that were used in the commission of these crimes. Some stolen material was recovered. There was some drugs recovered. There was a lot of electronic devices that were recovered. And ultimately, this was quite a big victory for the SKU team, the street crime enforcement team. One thing that I do want to stress is that the value of having that street crime enforcement team in our office locally, because we were able to take a local issue that was causing a lot of people in the community big stress. There was a lot of value of construction materials stolen from local businesses and people just trying to build homes, stuff like that. And this problem was too large really for the frontline officer to continue to work this. And this was the perfect example of where we have these plainclothes officers that can take the time and dedicate the special care that's needed to link these things all together, because there's a lot more intricate than the majority of most things that are faced by the frontline officer. And it's also an example of how well the partnerships were able to work together between jurisdictions, also between our organization, the RCMP, and the Halifax Regional Police. And the end result is fantastic, honestly. this is, I can't get into too much more detail about this because we're now just starting to enter into the court stages. Charges will be laid. These 4 people will be facing charges and they'll have their day in court. And once that all is done, we've done a media release already, but there will be an updated media release with the names of the individuals that were arrested eventually. And so anyways, I just wanted to speak to that and just, it was a really great project and I'm proud of the people involved.
To know that that street crime unit is active out there. A lot of times we don't hear that, and so raises the question, what are you actually working on? So this is just a perfect way to augment your street crime unit.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Jared. I'd be remiss if I didn't let everybody know that Jared was a real driving supervisory force for this project. So I'm grateful to him for his efforts there. I'll emphasize the points that he made about the value of street crime. Right now, there is a review going on within the province of Nova Scotia about the additional officer program for which the street crime members are part of. That also includes the school safety resource officers, which we don't have one. We have our own school officer, which the municipality pays for. But within East Hants, we have 2 street crime members that are part of the additional officer program. Because that's under review, there's always a chance that those officers could be pulled out of East Hants and redeployed to somewhere else, perhaps in a hub model or something along those lines. I'd like to think that all the municipalities will get a voice at that table when they make those decisions. East Hants is a growing area. It is growing massively and at a rapid rate. So there's great value to us retaining our street crime and to not let those resources get drawn away somewhere else. So I bring that for your attention. So as we traditionally do, this is a breakdown of some of the key calls for service since our last meeting, and albeit this was a short window, the summer window is a longer one, so the calls seem like they're a little lesser than the last time, but we're talking about a shorter duration. But we have our 3-year average compared with the numbers this quarter, and I'll give everyone a minute to review those numbers.
Yeah, Corey, I think that everybody had
Okay.
these prior to our meeting, so they should have gone over these at that point. So if you'll continue, that would be.
Thank you, Chair. And also continuing with our previous trends, mental health calls, wellness checks are on the rise, motor vehicle collisions and crashes are on the rise, traffic offenses in the corridor is getting very busy. We just had a quarterly report done by the province, and the corridor between Elmsdale and Truro on the 102 highway is being highlighted as an area of a lot of concern for motor vehicle crashes, collisions, and other dangerous driving incidents. So we're continuing to monitor that. Our officers are doing their best to enforce. We have the benefit of the provincial traffic unit that's out there as well. But again, as the corridor grows, these areas will probably continue to grow. Areas of concern. So moving along, I mentioned consultation and our annual performance plan, which is something that we start every year. It was held in abeyance last year due to COVID, but we're going to be back on track. That was across the province, but we're back on track this year. And as I mentioned, the CO, it's one of his priorities for us to get out and do strong consultations. And so I'll be looking to our committee here through the chair, perhaps individually, if it pleases the chair, to have those conversations through the winter about what are the main detractors from public safety, from the perspective of your constituents, from your personal perspectives. We ask who's best suited to address some of these issues. These are things that we want to probe. What innovative techniques can police bring to bear to solve our major areas of crime and or dysfunction that detract from our public safety? And your feedback will form the basis of our annual performance plan and the initiatives therein. So some suggestions, and again, I'll be seeking your feedback to see if this is something that would be supported by the communities, but community town hall meetings, that's something that has been done in the past. Is that something that the residents of East Hants would appreciate if we were to set up a town hall meeting, say in Rawdon or in Kennecott or in Maitland? Obviously, we can't hit everywhere, but we'd like to hit some key areas, and feedback on what areas those might be would be helpful. Would the feedback be best from the chair or from the members or both? I'd also like to dip into the Chamber of Commerce perhaps to see what they have to say, and feedback from our schools. So these are the types of things that we'll be looking to data mine and speak to people about the types of things that they want to see from their police, the types of things that are going on in the community that are of grave concern. And I have to focus, what are the detractors from public safety? And because everyone has their own personal priorities, but what is really keeping people up at night, feeling unsafe, and that's the stuff that we should be focusing on. So I'll let you think about that, and I'll probably be having a conversation early in the new year with the chair to start addressing these things and come up with a bit of a plan on how we're going to start getting this feedback.
Thank you, Staff Sergeant Bushell. And I'll now open the floor to any members that have questions or concerns, or either with regard to the report or within reason other issues. Councillor or Deputy Warden Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the RCMP. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for that operation update and a job well done. There was a lot of thefts in Mount Uniacke, and there was a lot of individuals, not just business owners, but individuals impacted. And when we talk about what makes people stay up at night is the fact that, people came in their yard and took stuff right from where they were sleeping. In some cases, right across the road from where like young children and families live. And it was very concerning. So I'm glad to hear that was a great success. One of them is actually my neighbor, and they were extremely happy that they actually were caught, because it's happened to them on multiple occasions. They are a small developer. They do 1 or 2 homes a year, and this is the first time they've actually had somebody caught doing it. So thank you and great job. There is speeding issues continuing in Mount Uniacke. Heard about it a lot on Remembrance Day in the areas of East Uniacke Road. Especially heavy trucks. And one of the biggest areas of concern is the blind corner by Lakefield Drive in between Savage and Lewis Lake. Sometimes the vehicles, and it can be cars too, they're going around that corner at a high speed. They're actually crossing into the other lane. And some residents are very concerned that an accident is going to be pending there. Also, as is well known, throughout the core of Uniacke, through the school zone, down through the skate park, that 50 zone is still quite a high speed. But one of the biggest areas that's emerging is a stretch between Eddie's Variety and the Irving. After the repaving, it's become a racetrack. It's an 80 zone, and people are going in excess of 80 quite a bit. I will also say that increased police activity has been noticed in the area, and that's a positive thing. I've gotten calls from residents wondering, why is there an RCMP car on my road? And I said, well, obviously there was something going on. That's why they're there, right? So that's a positive thing, that people are noticing the increased presence of the RCMP in the community. One of the last things I'll say is Remembrance Day this year was the first year in many years that we didn't have a member at the cenotaph in Mount Uniacke, which is fine. We understand that, you know, everybody can't be everywhere, and there's many other cenotaphs and places throughout the municipality that have services that don't have officers present as well. But it was just mentioned to me, maybe just a heads up and some coordination prior, so things aren't laid out and waiting for an officer, and then, you know, the Legion and the people organizing the ceremonies have to quickly adjust when there's a no-show. And the last thing I have on mine is it appears activity for theft in the business park seemed to be on a rise again. I know you guys already know this, but the business owners are getting a little concerned that the thefts are occurring more frequently, and some of them are of quite large items. And my 2 cents for the focus, identifying policing priorities. One of the biggest concerns that I heard even from my neighbor is she's worried about the theft of her furnace oil this winter with increased cost. Some form of information or public notice of what people can do to protect their home heating fuel, and, you know, even the copper line that runs between their tank and the house. We've seen those being stolen in many different areas as well. So far, not in our community, but it's something that people are worried about. So I don't know if part of the community policing, especially dealing with seniors and those who live alone, that's something that's concerning to them, because the cost of filling that tank now is quite large. Mm-hmm. And that's it for me. Other than that, I thank you for what you do. And it's not easy. The requests are always there to do more with less, but hopefully everything continues to go well, and these officers get on the ground soon to help you guys out. Thank you.
That all, Deputy Warden?
That's all.
Thank you very much. Staff Sergeant Bushell, would you like to talk to that? I know you and I have discussed this at length sometimes. So would you like to address?
Certainly. Just a couple of points. I guess we'll start with the thank you for your comments and the nice sentiments about our operation. I appreciate that, and we appreciate the sentiments when our members are seen and acknowledged to be in the communities. That's great. I like that. With respect to Remembrance Day, that we are stretched thin. It's hard to get to all of them. We do appreciate that we're in high demand on that day, and it's case in point, and it's something I was going to bring up here just after we're done our comments. I'm currently working to identify areas. There's a need for us to assess and revisit how police get engaged for traffic control during parades, during public ceremonies, these types of things. As evidenced on November 11th, the corridor along Highway number 2 between Elmsdale and Enfield was roadblocked, basically. Traffic couldn't get through, emergency vehicles couldn't get through. That we need to work with our community partners that are having these events so that they can coordinate better traffic control. We did not have enough officers to support going to parades and traffic control and so on and so forth. So these are areas that we're currently working through, but we really appreciate being desired at these events, and we'll continue to attend the best we can. On the furnace oil, which I believe this is what Chair was alluding to, personally I had an opportunity to get to and this is for the benefit of the general public, but had an opportunity to be at Princess Auto recently, and I was there for business in uniform, and one of the sales associates was just commenting that they have seen a run on fuel oil pumps like they've never seen. And these are the pumps that go on the back of a pickup truck for a large container and allow the user to draw fuel oil from other containers and pump it back out, sort of two-way pumping. And clearly the indication is people are gearing up to steal furnace oil. They're gearing up to steal diesel oil out of heavy machinery in the woods. They're gearing up to steal furnace oil from churches, from community buildings. Folks need to be proactive, and we'll try to get out there with some media to try to give some tips and tricks on how to better target harden your furnace oil. But for those that you know that are listening here today, perhaps or checking out the minutes online, they need to take proactive steps to protect their furnace oil, keep their tanks locked, keep their tanks in a well-lit area, make sure the bushes are trimmed so that there's clear line of sight from the road, so that no would-be thief would be able to clandestinely hide and take your furnace oil. These are things that everyone needs to be aware of, because it's gold right now. Furnace oil is worth massive money, and it's a target. So that's not to raise concern. It's to raise awareness. It's so that people can be wise and take proactive steps. Like I say, we're not looking to raise alarm or make people fearful. We just want people to be aware and be smart and take those steps to protect themselves or their kin.
Thank you, Staff Sergeant, for that answer. Next on the list is Counselor Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to Staff Sergeant and his friend. I notice your traffic offenses are up for the quarter. And since impaired driving is not one of those in the list, would this be more speeding or running red lights or going through stop signs?
So those are all offenses. That's everything. It's reports of reckless driving, seatbelts, like any types of. Those are basically calls that the police get about somebody doing some kind of driving offense, and it could be any of that spectrum. The SOTs represent the tickets given for such driving offenses. As you can appreciate, a lot of times if we get a call for a driving offense northbound on the 102 near Shubenacadie, that car is out of our area before we get there generally. So it's still reported as an offense, but our ability to interdict is low. We always pass those on to Colchester or the next agency, but if they're successful interdicting, then that would go on their stats, not ours, as far as a ticket or a warning. That encompasses everything. Like say, speeding, passing school buses. If it's a driver doing something they shouldn't, that's what those numbers represent.
Okay, the second question deals with speeding in subdivisions. How often do you guys monitor subdivision speeding?
That's something that we members try to proactively do throughout their shifts. It's a very difficult thing for us to address because we have so many subdivisions, and speeding in the subdivisions is chronic. I don't think there's any subdivisions in the municipality of East Hants where speeding isn't a concern from time to time. There's some subdivisions, obviously, that the concerns are higher. I speak of White Road. That's an area under heavy construction. There's a lot of people that don't live in that subdivision that are commuting there for work in the trades. A lot of these vehicles are in a rush. They're not invested in that community because their kids aren't on that street, and there's a lot of speeding that goes in those areas. So we do try to pay some extra attention there. But to answer the question, where most members are not sitting idle in those subdivisions, day by day. We try to get there when we can, but it's a hard thing to prioritize when we have other calls for service.
The last item is we were fortunate in Elmsville to have some of the members in the Red Surge attend on Remembrance Day, and I just want you to pass on a thank you for those that were taller than me that attended, and I appreciated it. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I'd just like to thank you. I'm very encouraged by the operation that you just discussed. I know that, regular policing, that's not part of it. It can't be because they are so busy with the day-to-day things. And to have an operation like that happen and charges come as a result of it, I think that we're very fortunate to have that in this area as well. Like Councillor Rhino mentioned, to have that then, in the news and out there for people to see. It's encouraging for the residents. It's also hopefully a deterrent for others who are, in that line of theft or thinking about it, you know, that, you know, the profile is out there now, and hopefully a big deterrent. As well, touching on the oil, I'm a big proponent of campaigns that bring things to the attention of residents. You know, whether it be the details of how to prevent your furnace oil from getting stolen. Once again, getting that information out there is also a deterrent to people who are thinking of how they can do that. You know, it works both ways. So I'm a huge fan of that. And yeah, thanks for your work, and that's it for me. Thank you. It is.
I think Sandra was gone.
Sandra, you back on? I turned there.
I am, thank you. I just wanted to add, we have three-way stops in, on White Road and Tyler Street as well, just been installed last week. The residents are very pleased about that, and due to the work of staff. So, yeah, so I just wanted to add that as part of our traffic calming. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just touching base quickly on the ATV part, and very pleased that you were able to have the use of some ATVs. And so I guess my question is, if Cumberland has ATVs, how do we get some here for you all the time?
Through you, Chair. So we've put forth a business case in order to get ATVs. It was supported locally, and we're just in the queue. We're still reeling from the effects of COVID and the supply chain shortages. We're having a difficult time getting police cars, and ATVs is part of that whole chain of acquisition events that we're struggling with.
Perhaps you could seize some when you can.
Yeah.
Just keep them to use.
You know what? That would be great.
But,
But no, we would like to get some, and however, it's something that we're waiting on.
And just secondly, just to touch briefly on the consultation you're looking for, and this is just my opinion, I'll throw it there. I think our chair is certainly quite capable and would be happy to provide a global overview with consultation. But I'd also say I think it might be worthwhile to have consultation with all the members of the committee, because all of our communities are different, and there might be problems in some community that the chair wouldn't be aware of, and the public members might have a different lens that they're looking through than perhaps we are. So that's just my take on that, and I'd certainly be available if needed. And I think that's it for me today. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden.
Morning.
Noticed on one of your slides, you had talked about a consultation with the school, so I'm kind of speaking from that perspective as I teach in one of the schools locally. We've noticed in the last 2 years a huge rise in acts of violence within our school. So just wondering that the last couple of years there, I know because of COVID, there hasn't really been any police presence in our school, particularly presentations, collaboration, that sort of thing. So just wondering if that will be coming back within the next little while.
Forgive me, just making some notes through you, Chair. So thank you very much for those comments. We're alive to the fact that violence does seem to be, on a bit of a trending upward right now in some schools, East Hants particularly, perhaps. May I ask which school you're with? Elmsdale. Okay. So our school liaison officer Nick Orman is excellent at getting out to all the schools the best that he can. He probably does spend the majority of his time at areas that are a little more problematic and with higher calls for service. But we'll be leaning on him to do that consultation and to get that feedback. So I'll make sure that your school is one of the ones that we do a little bit of a deeper dive and find out what's going on there. Yeah, it's, that is a concern. And I'm not sure if it's just the anxiety around COVID coming through that on the other end. And so we'll be looking for your thoughts and the thoughts of your colleagues to get some suggestions there.
For you, Mr. Chair, to Carl, I'm sorry, Sergeant Bushel, I was wondering, do you still do a public members or that go and travel with the drivers, the RCMP? I don't know how many years ago that used to be. I don't know if that's still going on.
So the quick answer is no. I think you're talking about the ride-along program. And that was something that was very popular a number of years ago. And personally, I used to take people out on ride-along quite often. And but liability became such that we just stopped doing it. It created a great liability for the RCMP, and perhaps risky for the individuals involved. Having said that, I've seen recent correspondence. We're trying to really drive recruiting, and one of the recommended initiatives, and I use the word recommended, not implemented, but one of the recommended initiatives was to reinvigorate the ride-along program. So we have not got the green light to continue with the ride-along program, but there is talk of reinstating it. But it is of great value. Again, liability was probably the driver to cancel it years ago.
The reason why I brought it up is just for like in Remembrance Day. I know you're short-staffed and all of the parades and whatnot, and I guess we're still having incidents with people traveling while the cenotaph is busy right then. I don't know how they can control it, or don't know how, because there was a problem in Enfield apparently. I know you just can't have the RCMP everywhere, so I just wondered if we had some of those staff that were the ride-alongs could probably for that day, or.
Oh, are you perhaps talking about the auxiliary program? The members that were like yeah. Oh, I see. Okay, so there are two different programs. The ride-along was strictly civilians coming out for a ride-along as civilians, but then we had the auxiliary program where they were dressed similar to a police officer, but didn't have firearms. They had training was limited. So again, due to liability, they've gone away with the auxiliary program with the exception of strictly administrative duties. So we still have auxiliaries, but they're at administrative roles only. That has not changed. I haven't seen any correspondence on that whatsoever. But that was a very valuable tool we used to have, and for just those things, and that we don't have that now. But we'll be. I'm going to be having consultation with with our local MLA, with one of our local fire chiefs, to talk about how we can seek, perhaps through our local firefighters, how we can seek through the MLA's Office of Provincial Government, parades and community festivals and community events and other activities on the highways. Those are important to our culture. They're important to our way of life and to the health and wellness of the public. We want to continue with those things. How do we do that and not solely rely on police agencies to do the traffic control and the safety? And I digress, but if we look at highway number 2, if we go back 20 years, that stretch of highway looks very different than it does today. And we have so many subdivisions, and there's such a volume of traffic on that road now that something as simple as taking a parade from Elmsdale to Enfield, which was rather benign years gone by, now they have to pass so many subdivisions where cars can jump into that parade at any given time. It's a time bomb. You know what I mean? Like, we're just waiting for an incident to take place that will be very unfavorable. So we need to start thinking a little more proactively about how to address it and keep these wonderful festivals and other community events going.
Thank you.
Next up, I'm going to public member
Just to sort of reiterate what Ms. Randall said in relation to the schools. Now, I got 5 kids 2 in CS or Comico District and 3 at Hants North. I hear a lot about what's going on at the schools. Now, I'll start with Hants North. Your school liaison officer is going to have his hands full there because the kids are being slammed up against the lockers on a daily basis. One parent took her kid right out of the school and basically took him home to be homeschooled. Another kid went into almost an eating disorder because he was bullied and teased so bad. And other kids are looking to transfer out of Hants North, and some kids are actually having into anxiety that they're forcing themselves to go to the bathroom before they go to school. For the fact is, they go to the bathroom in the school, they get taunted and bullied while trying to use the bathroom. That's Hants North. Now, Comico District, there's a lot of bullying going on there. Now, my kid is no angel, but at the same time, for about 6 weeks, he was basically picked on and picked on. And if you know what a flying chest bump is, it's basically they stand back about 5 or 6 feet, try to catch a kid off guard, run, and then fly into the air and hit them, either in the back or in the chest, and try to knock them, and then the kids all laugh at them. So this went on for 6 weeks with my young fella. Reported to the principal, reported to the teachers, reported to the playground monitors. 6 weeks continued, so I told him, I want you to write it down for the next 3 to 4 weeks. And he did. I said, did you tell the teacher? Yes. Did you tell the principal? Yes. Did you do this? Yes. To a point, I had to show him tactical takedowns to prevent it. That he gets in trouble for using physical. Right? Now, when I said tactical takedown, it's just basically a straight arm bar down to the ground, controlled, and let the kid back up. Kid gets back up, comes at him again, takedown again, lets him off, backs off. My kid gets in trouble for it. So, in that issue with that is, like you said, that is becoming regular within the schools. And that's a 9-year-old. And he's not the only one. This is going on, and there's at least 3 or 4 that are doing it on a regular basis. So I said, is it Mr. Osmond? He's going to have his hands full.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Densmore. Through you, Chair. Obviously, that is a great concern. I'll be very interested in having a conversation with our school liaison officer to probe perhaps why or what his perceptions are of how the school is unable to manage these situations themselves. We certainly we don't want to criminalize youth for doing immature things. It sounds, it sounds like a problem that's is gonna require a multi-jurisdictional approach. Police, the school, parents. That sounds terrible, especially for the young people that are victimized in this way. But I've got a lot of questions, I guess, as to how that's allowed to persist, within the school. And I'll be looking to find some answers there.
Look, the bully works his way down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's one fellow out there, he picked on one guy, he got thrown around like a rag doll. Left him alone. He picked on the next fella, he got a smack in the face. And then he started on my fella. And then after a while, okay, this is what you got to do. It's pretty bad when a 9-year-old kid in the school has to take care of the issue themselves.
Yeah. Oh, without, I completely concur. A 9-year-old child shouldn't have to worry about their physical safety within a school.
Yeah.
Or have to learn, defensive tactics on how to keep themselves safe in the school. Like that's inappropriate, and no child should have to wear that burden, along with studying, along with fitting in, along with all the other troubles that youth face these days. Your personal safety should be the last thing on your mind. in a school. So rest assured, it's something we'll be taking a look at, and hopefully, with the help of the administrators, maybe get some answers as to how it can be addressed.
Nope, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the Staff Sergeant, just some for clarification. Is the detachment right now just waiting for the stock of ATVs to come in? Have they been approved, or are they waiting to get approved to get ATVs and then go through the procurement process?
No, it's a great question. And so my business case was accepted as it was submitted, that yes, we concur and we support it. It's in the queue along with everyone else to get new police vehicles, be it new ones like they would be to us, or evergreening old stock that needs to be refreshed in other units. I don't have the answer to when the timelines are going to be.
Okay, so it's approved, you're just waiting for the delivery, whenever the supply chain can catch up with it?
Well, and it's approved by my manager, whether or not, and this is where these things always sit, when it comes to, we just got for a quick example, case in point, we just got a brand new police car this week. There were 6 allocated to the province. And so headquarters determined we were going to get 6 more cars. And my local manager, for Northeast Nova, Ottavan and Ganesh, determined we would get one. So my local managers approved the ATVs, but ultimately it'll be headquarters who determines if ATVs are going to come.
Okay.
And that's within all these other competing priorities right now. So when and if headquarters determines that ATVs are, for us, have hit that threshold, then we'll get the A-OK to get them. But I really don't have a timeline. I'd love to say it will be this spring, but I can't say.
Timelines for delivery, I just was wondering if, where's the choke point, and what final approval is. So it's sitting with headquarters.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody is going to disagree that they are of high value or that we need them. No one's going to disagree with that. It's just availability and prioritization over other units. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Just want to touch briefly on the violence in schools. And I think it's a problem across society. I find that in general, after the last 2 to 3 years, there are many angry people in society. And there just seems to be that air of frustration and anger, and maybe it's built out of anxiety. I don't know. But the school situation is troubling, and I don't know how you fix it. I can tell you when I was a child, if I get into trouble for something at school, and word came home that I had gotten in trouble for something at school, I was in way worse trouble at home than I'd been in school. But I find that is not the way anymore in many cases. And for whatever reason, there are many parents there who truly believe that their children do no wrong. And I've never met a child that hasn't done something wrong once in a while. Even myself, believe it or not, as a child, might have stepped out of line once or twice. And I think that's going to be part of your challenge, because in cases like Public Member Densmore said, if word came home to his home that his child was instigating something, it would be dealt with at home as well. But it's not in many cases, and therein, I don't envy you your job, because therein is part of the challenge. And it's a different world that we live in, and I know it's not possible, but I think back to a number of years ago, I had a tour of the headquarters in Dartmouth. It was fascinating. And I can't help but think that if it was at all possible, if some of our youth had an opportunity to do something like that and to get a more positive view of policing and perhaps gather some of the values that would go along with that. If that, if something like that would help. And maybe not, but if you could just channel the aggression that some of these young people have into something different, because I hear exactly what he's saying, and it starts very, very young in the schools now. And recently chatting with someone who said, my policy was, you report it once, it happens again, nothing's done. Report it twice, nothing's done. Happens the third time, you take care of it yourself. And it's unfortunate that our children are having to be taught this. And it's unfortunate that some children don't have the wherewithal to take care of it themselves. And as you say, they shouldn't have to. So I know we have one school liaison officer. He's stretched pretty thin. But I believe there are other officers who are somewhat directed towards school policing and that as well. And I think we're going to need every bit of time in that we can. And for me, I think I can safely say that's probably one of the priorities for everyone here. And just with that, I just throw out for councils and the public members' consideration, we've talked about this consultation and that rather than having yourself or some of your members try and call the chair and all the members and that and get some feedback, what would a workshop look like sometime in the new year? If we could have some type of a workshop, and I don't know, people, it could be in person, it could be by Zoom, whatever worked for people, and do that bit of consultation with this group at least. That's just something I throw out there. I don't know. I'd be interested in hearing what the chair thought and what other councillors would think about that, because I do think it's important, and I know that the school situation will certainly be, I think, near the top of everyone's list. Thank you.
All Councilor Warden?
That's all.
All right, I just want to remind everybody that last week our hour allotted, and I'm going to let it go. I'm not taking anything away with what just we talked about here. I do think that we all would go on with problems in schools, over and over, and we set our own resources together. So, it is a problem. I think it's not just RCMP, it's everyone. So I'm going to leave it at that, and maybe we can have another discussion further down the road, and hopefully we can see some end results. Councilor Gordon Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do just have to touch on what Public Member Densmore said, because it is very disturbing, and it's something that we can turn a blind eye to or know that it's going on, but we get, away from it. I'm just hoping that maybe this will spark more involvement with a liaison or someone in the schools, especially at the higher levels, be it middle school or high schools, that maybe and I realize that administration at times these days is feeling like their hands are tied to discipline or what actions they can do with children, because it's not just students, it's parents as well, students/parents. I'm hoping that, a liaison or RCMP can work with administration to give them the support that they need to maybe take measures that they may not have taken before. And that's what I'm hoping will come out of this. It's a really hard topic, but we can't just pretend that it's not going on. As you said, it's hard enough these days without dealing with those kind of issues. And I think bringing it to the forefront of the students as well. Maybe this is another case where having a presentation or something through an assembly or whatnot would be making students aware that they're not alone in this, but also making the not just the victims, but the people who are doing it aware that we're aware of it and that it's out there. So that's just some suggestions of mine off the top of my head. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. At this point, like to discuss? Thank you, Warden. Staff Sergeant, we talked about heavy equipment and heavy truck traffic in Mount Uniac area. Do we work with compliance there that can set up LiDAR and stuff like that along those sections of road? Or is that something, if we don't do it, can we do it?
Yes, Chair, that's something that we've done in the past. We haven't done it very, very recently, but partnering with compliance is definitely something we can and have done in the past. Our provincial traffic unit, they partner with compliance on a regular basis. The actual NCO in charge of provincial traffic for Nova Scotia lives in Mount Uniac, and that's near and dear to his heart. So if there's if we want to try to get an initiative going in that area, I'm sure a quick phone call to him. He's a colleague and a peer of mine. We can likely, I don't want to make promises I can't, or write checks that I can't cash, but I'm sure we could speak to him, and through his unit, we can get something going in that regard.
Okay, thank you very much on that one. For your ride-along program, I really do hope this returns. I benefited from my experience with it. It was an eye-opener, and I think really, you know, everyone around this table, if they so wished, would benefit from it to see what happens on those front lines. And no, I wasn't used as a shield or a baton. I actually rode along, and it was nice. So. And I'm a strong proponent of that. Remembrance Day, I know you're taxed, but I'm going to say I put a post on email, and I thank you, Staff Sergeant Bushel, for attending the one in Maitland. That went a long way, just not only in your appearance, it went a long way in your conversations before and after, and it was well noticed, and we need more of that, and I'm very thankful for that. Consultation process. I really do think that, you know, as the warden has said, each counselor and each public member have their own definite opinions. I think in the past, or I know in the past, that staff sergeants have met individually with individual counselors, and I would extend that to public members. But I also want to, you know, bring the Police Act says, you know, anything really actually should go through the chair. So I would like to attend as many meetings, if that's the way we choose to go, as possible there. And the last thing for me, you know, we're talking about furnace oil theft. Okay, we're approaching the Christmas season, and you know what that brings. There's going to be a lot of hardship this year with the inflation and the prices of fuel oil and so on and so forth. So are we doing anything, lock your vehicle programs throughout East Hants with regard to storing your Christmas gifts out of sight? Will that be front and center as well? Could you answer me on that?
Thank you, Chair. And yes, so we are continuing with our local media through the Laker News, and we give them snippets every week. And so we'll definitely be including some PSAs this year around how to be sort of holiday safe and look at those types of things. But there's other initiatives that can be brought to bear. I've seen in the past sometimes dropping flyers in the parking lots on vehicle windows, just to broaden the awareness through different media, not just through social media. We're open to any suggestions in that regard. And it's not all. It doesn't have to come from police either. A lot of it is common sense techniques. We wouldn't be discouraged or upset if anyone ever took that initiative on themselves. But we historically and traditionally, police normally drive a lot of that programming.
Realizing that this is just not specific to East Hants. This is be across the province and across the nation. Has there anything at the provincial level been thought of, like such as, you know, similar to your drunk driving, your checkpoints there that for around the Christmas season with regard to keeping your Christmas gifts hid? You know, we could even incorporate a discussion under, you know, oil tanks and oil around that. What at the provincial level has been talked about that you can discuss here?
I don't have awareness of what's happening at a provincial level from an interdiction type perspective, from a investigative or interdictive type, but I can speak to what our local provincial media has done, and they like to get engaged on these types of things. They will continue with their own PSAs on a provincial wide format. Again, Chair, I don't know if there's a broad agenda. Not saying there isn't, there probably is, but I'm just not aware of it from our headquarters looking at these broader criminal instances and how they're going to tackle them. I think
Is that something that you could bring up when among discussion with your peers?
Oh, indeed.
You know,
Yes,
I would
indeed.
appreciate that if you could. And that's pretty well it for me. Any other issues, I'll contact you personally, so.
Mr. Chair?
All right. Thank you, Madam Warden. Councillor Norval Mitchell?
Yes, just a quick question, and just sitting and thinking, are you getting many more calls or an increase in calls on shoplifting and gas and go?
Good question. The shoplifting, I think that's pretty static. Hasn't changed a tremendous amount. Gas and goes continues to be a bit of an issue. And the gas and go is something that we take from a policing agency perspective. There is a bit, we take a bit of an issue with it. It's 100% preventable. It is a business decision for a gas station to choose pay at the pump versus pay at the till. It is a type of crime that is 100% preventable. Personally, I do not prefer to deploy our police officers on minor thefts that are preventable. We have these conversations with our gas retailers, encouraging them to convert to pay, prepay or pay at the pump. This would completely eliminate the problem in East Hants and all parts of the province. Many other provinces has gone exclusively pay at the pump or prepay, and they don't have these issues. So for a $20 gas and go or a $100 gas go, really doesn't matter. We could chase that down and spend easily 2, 3, 4 hours of an officer's time. And that's for something that's preventable, and that's time that will not be spent perhaps looking into speeding or looking into a serious investigation of sexual assault or, something else that's actually causing great distress to the members in the community of East Hants. It's something we do talk about on a regular basis with our headquarters to try to push from a provincial level that this needs to be, spoken to, like I say, at a consistent level with retailers to consider other options, because it is around our resources.
Sometimes it's difficult for people to prepay if they don't have a credit card or some don't carry debit cards with them. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And again, there's always the option to pay inside, right? They run in, drop their 20 on the till, and they'll get credit for $20 gas. It's 100% preventable. It's inconvenient, but it's for some people, but it's preventable.
Just one final question to try and maybe wrap up. We do have some other presenters waiting. Having heard the chair indicate the necessity or the desire to attend as many consultation things as possible, is a workshop something that the RCMP would think would work well for that consultation?
Oh, sure. If there's something, if we wanted to come together and have a collective.
Well, then I'll just throw this out there and see where it goes. I would move that staff be instructed to schedule a workshop to discuss the consultation process, and that perhaps look at continuation of executive or council in January or February. And as many of us as possible could attend, and those who couldn't attend then could follow up individually.
It would be great, and if staff could be advised to do that deeper community consultation prior to, so that they come armed with lots of feedback, that would be wonderful. And then we could kind of cover it off in one place, brainstorm a little bit, and what the priorities are, and perhaps come up with the top ones.
All right, there has been a motion made. Is there a seconder for that motion? seconded by Counselor Mitchell. Any comment or question with regard to the motion? The question has been called and no one is here left to speak. We'll go to the vote. And 9, 10, 11, 12. Yep, and everyone has voted and it's passed unanimously. Thank you for that.
No, there were 13 of us.
13, or somebody didn't vote then? There's 11 of us and 3 is 14.
No,
Who
Wayne's
didn't vote?
not here, so there's 13.
Let's go back to that vote again, please.
There,
And we're,
that's it.
check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
There's 13.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, now it passed unanimously. All right, seeing nothing left and nothing like that, I would like to thank Staff Sergeant Bush. Oh, I see a hand up.
Forgive me, Chair. I just wanted to and I swear 30 seconds or less, with regard to the headquarter tour, I just want to throw the dates out from December 5th to December 9th. There are some dates that are available. If we could we don't have to do this right now, but we'd like to know who would be available during that time frame, like the number of people that would be coming, and then very quickly, just to wet your whistle, the types of things that we'd be looking at would be going into the OCC, looking at our IDENT, that's the CSI folks, traffic reconstruction, the emergency response team, explosives unit, police dog unit, underwater recovery unit, clandestine lab, and then wrap up with our training center where all the members receive their training. So it should be a really fun-filled day with some very informative information. But if the 5th to the 9th pleases most of the room, I'd love to get some numbers and which day would work the best, and we'll try to coordinate.
All right, I'm gonna throw it out there for a quick straw poll. How many would be interested in that? And when we'd have to define a definite date after that. By straw poll, who would be interested in that? Looks like almost everyone, I'll have staff kind of work out through email a date, and we all come up with a date, or is that, would that something we could do? CAO? Okay, so we'll be in touch by email.
Thank you.
I thank you very much, so expect a huge number from this police advisor, I would say. So. Anyway, if nothing further, I'd like to publicly thank Staff Sergeant Bushell and Constable Ryan for attending and presenting the quarterly report and taking part in the discussion that has ensued from that. Stay safe, stay well.
Thank you.
And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, to return to Corporate and Residential Services, chaired by Deputy Warden Mitchell. Or Deputy Warden Perry, excuse me. Moved? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary of mine, motion's carried. Thank you.
All right, we're going to call the Corporate and Residential Services Committee to order. First, I'll be looking for the approval of the minutes of 18 October 2022. Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Garden Cole. All those in favor? Aye. All right, next. I'd like to thank the Shubin Canal Commission for waiting patiently, and we look forward to your proposal and welcome to council. And we'll get.
Okay.
Good morning. Thank you, Warden Rolston, Chair Councillor Perry, and councillors for having us here today. We're here from the Shubenacadie Canal Commission. My name is Anna Richard. I'm the research coordinator, and I have Claire Halpern, the executive director, with me. And we also have a Commissioner, Brad Hodgins, who's here with us today. So today we wanted to share some progress that we've made on our transitions project since we made our initial presentation in March 2021. We'll refresh you on the project, provide some updates, and then leave some time for discussion and questions. So a little bit of information about the Shubenacadie Canal Commission. Our mission is to preserve the historic features of the Shubenacadie Canal Waterway and to provide access to the waterway for the education and enjoyment of the public, which we do through managing park sites, developing interpretation, and offering programming, which we often do through partnership with community organizations. So we're working on the Transitions Project, which is a 3-year research and planning project with the goal of increasing awareness, access, and usage to the Shubenacadie Canal Waterway. We're currently in phase 2, the research, design, and pilot projects phase. And we're looking towards completion in late 2023, and we have several major goals for that end date, including developing pilot projects, new interpretive exhibits that highlight the rural section of the waterway, and pursuing nomination of the waterway to the Canadian Heritage Rivers System. Our work as staff is guided by the Transitions Advisory Committee. So we have members representing key stakeholders and interests. We meet monthly, and a lot of these members are just community members, many from East Hants. And we also have a representative from the municipality, Aurora Doothright, who's the events and tourism supervisor. So we're very grateful to the guidance that they provide as we pursue this work. So our goal was to deliver at least 7 pilot projects through this project, and we've managed to have 8 under development by now, so we're thrilled about that. I'm going to run through a couple of projects to highlight that are more involved in the East Hants community. So the first is Acadian Surfaces, where we worked with artist Nancy Chasson to explore the Acadian heritage of the Shubenacadie Waterway. She created 3 ceramic murals that reference that heritage, and they were on display here at the Elmsdale Public Library. We had an opening celebration, we had public programming, and it was a really good opportunity for us to make a connection with the Elmsdale Public Library that we'll definitely pursue further as an organization in future, and to offer community programming for residents of East Hants. We've also hired 4 professional tourism writers to develop articles about ways to explore the Shubenacadie Waterway. So how can you get out and take advantage of the recreation opportunities, what businesses to frequent, places to eat, things like that. So we've published one of those stories so far called A River Runs Through It by Nancy Stapleton, and we've had really high engagement on that. Over 7,000 people viewed the post just on Facebook alone. So we're going to share more of those in the spring, and also create digital and print itineraries that will help to motivate people to get out and explore the interior section of the waterway. We've also been working on a project called My Shuby Milestone with the company Dashboard Living. And this is creating 5 short videos that highlight people's connections with the Shubenacadie River. The first is about fishing on the Shubenacadie and features East Hants resident Al Wallace and the Shubenacadie River Commercial Fishermen's Association. We are looking for more people and stories from this community to highlight as part of that project. So that's something, if anyone has any recommendations, we appreciate them. And we have also completed a structure condition review of Lock 6. So this is an important park for our organization. And the lock structure is crumbling there. So this structure review gave us some paths forward of how we could complete an aesthetic restoration of the locks and incorporate some more viewing platforms, things that would enhance the visitor experience.
So that report has now gone to our board, and we are working on a park plan that will help to shape the future of that park, and that's something that we'll continue to share with recreation staff here at the municipality. We have other projects that share Mi'kmaq and African Nova Scotian heritage along the waterway. We've added a dock to create public water access to Lake Thomas, and we've also supported the creation of a documentary called Swim the Shubie that highlights the journey of a man who swam the entire 114-kilometer waterway. We had a viewing of that in Shubie Park this fall, and we're hoping that we can show that again next year at some sites in East Hants as well. And an important part of this project has also been making connections. So as I mentioned, we've worked with staff of the municipality of East Hants, as well as other municipal organizations and the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq, cultural and environmental organizations. The connection with the Elmsdale Public Library has been really positive for us. There's many other organizations that we've been developing those connections so that we can focus our work more broadly, not just in the Dartmouth area, but along the waterway. And also connecting with subject matter experts. So these connections inform our work on the pilot projects, redevelopment of new exhibitor interpretation, and future planning for the organization. I'll pass it over to you, Claire.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, everyone. I'm here to talk about the Canadian Heritage River Systems as part of our project. So exploring the nomination is a key objective of our project. The Canadian Heritage River System is Canada's national river excellence program that recognizes the natural, cultural, and recreational values of rivers all across Canada. There are currently 40 rivers in the program that are 40 rivers in the country that are recognized, and the Canadian Heritage River Systems tells our river stories, the stories of Canada. We celebrate the importance of river heritage, from Indigenous people to voyageurs and settlers, from industry and the economy to our rich and natural landscape. This program has no legislative authority. It's driven by volunteer participation, partnership, cooperation, and community involvement. Across Canada, 2 rivers in Nova Scotia have been nominated so far. One is the Margaree River and one is the Shelburne River. Other designated rivers include the St. John River in New Brunswick. The nomination created new partnerships that boosted river tourism and created unique experiences. The Rideau Waterway in Ontario, which is the most altered river system in Canada. There are 29 operational locks that lift and lower boats. The designation has focused on increasing access to the waterway by adding public docks. And the Fraser River in BC is home to 3 million people and over 2.4 million hectares of farmland in the river basin. The Port of Vancouver at the mouth of the Fraser is the largest port in Canada, and the heritage designation has had no effect on the economic activity in the region. The Shubenacadie Waterway was identified by federal provincial panels as the next Nova Scotian river system to be included in the program. The Shubenacadie Waterway is important to the cultural map of Canada. This is a country of rivers, and the rivers connect the past with our present and future. The Shubenacadie Waterway is sacred, and there must be stewardship for the future. The water, shores, and the people of the Shubenacadie hold the stories of thousands of years of Mi'kmaq life, of settlement of diverse groups, of industry, engineering, and labor, of conflict, and Canada's residential school system, of resistance, and of care for the environment and recreation. We believe that the waterway deserves to be nationally recognized, and we want to share the unique stories with the rest of the country. Some of the benefits is connecting the people, businesses, and organizations that care about the river through the process of applying. Funders and investors look favorably on a designation. The collaborative creating a plan and building recognition and appreciation of the waterway on a national and provincial level. So we're at the very beginning of the process. Right now, we're looking for community support from municipalities, from businesses, and community organization. If the support is favorable, we will lead a background study that identifies the waterway's natural, cultural, and recreational values. As part of transitions, we recently completed a business survey to solicit advice on research and promotion of the waterway. One of the questions asked business opinions on pursuing a nomination. 50% wanted to see it move forward, and 50% wanted more information. So we are here today asking for East Hants Council to write a letter of support for pursuing the nomination of the Shubenacadie Waterway as a Canadian Heritage River. We appreciate the opportunity to present to Council, and we want to extend a big thank you to staff who are working on the Transitions project with us.
Well, thank you very much, Claire and Anna, for the presentation. We have, right now, the warden would like to speak.
Thank you. Certainly interesting, and there's no doubt that the Shubenacadie River is very much, would seem to me to be a contender for this type of. I would fall under the business folks who would like to have more information. It certainly on the surface sounds like an excellent proposition, but I would just want to have the details on exactly what it means and what it would mean to the municipality, because that's a water source for the municipality. Would it affect that? What effect would it have on businesses and things like that? Just questions, doing due diligence that I think I myself would like answered, and I suspect that council would want answered. So it wouldn't be a yes today, but I would certainly like to have some more information to in order to allow us to make a decision. I don't know what other councillors think. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Looking to see if anybody else from council would like to make any comments. Back to you, Warden.
Well, I would move that that staff interact with the group to gain some more information around the suggestion, to provide council with a report that would allow us to make a decision on the request.
Made by the warden, seconded by Councilor Garden Cole. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. So, no. So thank you very much for your presentation today. So staff will be in contact. We'll get that information, and then we'll be able to come back and make a decision out of council.
Great. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. All right, next order of business. We only have one item under new employee introductions, and I'll turn it over to you. I believe you, CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have with us today Alex Fenton. He's in the back of the room there. Alex comes to us from HRM. He has brings a lot of experience in roads and the maintenance of such, so we're very excited to have him on board. We have one more technician to hire in the roads division, and then we will be back to fully staffed of 2. So we have been light on roads and staff of late, so we're very excited to have Alex with us, and we hope that in the next few months we can get some of our work done that I know some of you councillors have been anxiously waiting to have done. Alex is your man. So welcome to East Hants.
Welcome, Alex, on behalf of all of council and committee. Thank you.
I'll look forward to speaking with all of you for, as Mr. Leal mentioned, I'm sure there's a lot of those standing things that you all want to speak with me about. I'm looking forward to meeting with all of you individually in the next couple of months. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good. And maybe if you have friends in the field, you can tell them how great we are.
All right. Next up, we're going to have a presentation by the SPCA. But we're scheduled for a break where we're running a little bit behind time, and Taking into consideration for the presenter, it'll only be a 5-minute break to go to the bathroom. So we'll be in break between now, actually maybe we'll make it 7, and we'll return back at 10:45. as the machine comes on. Okay. Reconvening Corporate Residential Services Committee. I'd like to thank the SPCA for their patience. Today we're a little bit behind, but welcome and we look forward to your presentation.
My name is Joanne Landsberg. I'm the Chief Provincial Inspector with the Nova Scotia SPCA. And with me today is Greg Hussey. He's one of our regional supervisors, and that includes the area of East Hants. So thank you for having us today. It's good to come in and give you a presentation. I know I've given a presentation once before, but there may be some new faces here, some more information we can share, and how our contract has been going with the municipality. So I guess I'll just start in, give us a little bit of background information about us.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you just point your mic towards you so
To me?
it
Yeah.
can be here? There you go. Perfect. Thank
Is
you.
that good? Is that better? Yeah. Okay. So, next slide. When we think of the SPCA, we think of animal welfare and animal control, what we're doing for the animals in the community. But the SPCA is more than that. We are about family. We're about community safety. We're about keeping pets and families together and creating lives. So it all comes in one. So it's not just about the animals, because without the people involved and the supporting families and homes and the whole community, we wouldn't be able to provide animals with such a welcoming environment. Just a little bit of background about the SPCA and what we have. So we have 13 law enforcement professionals that work in the law enforcement program. Our officers are strategically located. We have officers in Yarmouth, in Kings County, Dartmouth, Colchester County, and Cape Breton. Greg, that's here today, he's actually positioned out of Truro. So it really helps in covering all the areas that's required. All of the enforcement officers that we have, we are special constables. We're appointed by the Department of Justice under the Police Act, and we are designated as peace officers. So as I was mentioning, Greg is our central regional manager for the area. We have other areas of the province on the East Coast and on the West Coast. We have different supervisors who maintain those areas. And Greg's area is quite vast, and of course it includes East Hants. Two of our officers that are located in our Dartmouth office also cover East Hants because it has that area. So sometimes Greg can respond, and sometimes our officers out of our Dartmouth office can respond as well, depending on who is closer. And we will use our Colchester shelter, or we may use our shelter in Dartmouth if we have to take animals in and keep them for a period of time. So it's kind of good in that way. Just a little bit of statistics over in this year, in 2022. So we received a total of 37 complaints that we've investigated. Usually with those complaints that we investigate, there could be several visits to the property in making sure that complaint is followed through completely. So that, that could be upwards of 100 times we've gone out to different residences and, given education, given warnings, and possibly a summary offense ticket, or we've had to impound animals. The chart beside the pie there indicates the amount of dog bites we've had, the amounts of times we've had to give verbal advice, verbal warnings, orders issued, dogs impounded, dogs redeemed. So that's just a little bit of a chart in the statistics that we've had so far in 2022. And I just went back in 2021. So there was a total of 54 complaints investigated in 2021. East Hants, I would say, is a relatively good area. There's really good pet owners in East Hants for the most part, and we do find that compliance is good. And it's, just in speaking with somebody, educating them and giving them the proper information is usually we're able to gain compliance, and it's not too much to handle. And again, lots of verbal warnings issued, education. We've given out a few summary offense tickets. but nothing too serious, which is really good because it does stand to show that the community members of East Hants are great pet owners. Just a little bit again about our SPCA officers. A lot of times people don't understand what authority does the SPCA officers have. So we do enforce specific sections of the Criminal Code, the Animal Protection Act, specific municipal bylaws, and First Nation bylaws as well. So we do First Nation communities around our region. Because our officers have dual appointments with the Animal Protection Act and municipal bylaws, it does give us a unique position to assist animals' welfare. When we receive a complaint for, let's say, a barking dog call, we're able to sometimes get to the root of the problem so that we can solve the reason why the dog is barking. So we can kind of switch hats a little bit. So, this is an example of a call we could go out on. Somebody calls in and says, well, there's a dog barking at this residence. Well, that dog that's barking could have a very good reason to be barking all the time. So because we have dual appointments, it's beneficial because we can get to the root of that problem. That dog is barking because, he's tied up on a chain, he's in a muddied area, his shelter is terrible, he doesn't have necessarily access to water. And who knows how long he's been there for. So we can address the root of the problem and really find out what's going on so that it's just not a barking dog call. We're actually finding out what's going on. And we have the legal authority then to address that under the Animal Protection Act. So the bylaw concern turns into then a provincial call, and we can work under that legislation. Another example, this dog was actually picked up roaming at large. So somebody calls in, say there's a dog roaming at large. This became an animal protection case because we were in that unique position where this dog is roaming at large, we can't find the owner, we're going to bring him in under the bylaw, we're going to impound him. But now looking at that dog, it has some really severe health issues. So we're going to bring him into our facility. He's going to see a vet. We're going to get him the care he needs. And if nobody comes forward for that, we're going to, potentially put him up for adoption. So it's really a good situation. Our special constables at the SPCA, we receive a lot of specialized training. Most officers come to us with law enforcement enforcement training. Greg has been through 2 years or 3 years of 3 years of law enforcement training through Durham College in Ontario. And a lot of our officers, they've been to a police academy, they've done other similar type courses like Greg has been through. We also do a lot of training in-house. In-house, we go through very specific training that includes things like basic investigation. We're looking at court disclosure, how to do rules of evidence, report writing, interview skills, court paperwork preparation, animal handling, for instance, how to use a catch pole. So it's not an easy task when you have a 100-pound pit bull on the end of a catch pole and what to do with that when he's trying to attack or bite somebody. So it's really important that for the liability aspect that all of our officers are highly trained in being able to handle these very serious situations. We just recently had a situation where the officers had to go out where the dog was very, very aggressive. We actually had to obtain a search warrant to go to the property and remove the dog because this was in East Hants. It was known to be attacking people at a local post office and getting away from the person. That person was not doing anything to maintain control of their dog. So we did have to go and seize that dog, and now it's currently being maintained at our one of our shelters, and we'll make determinations on what we're able to do with that dog moving forward. The days are gone by of just the local dog catcher being out there are, I would say, probably gone because it is such a specialized talent that you need to have to be able to enforce the law in a proper way, as well as having those skills to be able to handle some very aggressive dogs. So in speaking of aggressive dogs, there have been a number of dog bites that have happened in East Hants and also across Nova Scotia. We're seeing an upwards trend of a lot of dog bites in Nova Scotia. In East Hants, there's been 6 this year, with a number of dog bites in other areas. And it could continue in East Hants, and we're working really hard to try to curb that. We're seeing with the SPCA in general, a lot of dogs being imported from other countries and provinces, and a lot of these dogs are just being scooped off the streets in various countries. They're being brought in. They're almost feral. So we're seeing that on the animal control side of things, where people are getting these dogs, the dogs are getting away from them because they really don't have the expertise and the training on knowing what to do with these dogs. They think they're just trying to save them. Those dogs end up biting or attacking somebody. We get the call about it, so then we're left with, trying to maintain control of this dog and figure out the situation and what we can do with it. So we are seeing a number of increased bites, not just in East Hants, but across the province in general. And I wouldn't be surprised if those would, more of those dogs would filter into the community here. We do take these complaints very seriously, and we investigate them very thoroughly and to get a resolution. This is just an example of the dog bite form we use. There's a tremendous amount of information that we collect. We interview the person that's been attacked or bitten. We interview all the people that have witnessed the situation. So we're getting statements from everybody, written statements, audio statements, and any evidence. We're getting photographs, anything that it can be used for our investigation, that in case it ends up going to court. So everybody is trained really well on how to process all that information. We do have a little chart there that we kind of go by, what type of bite the dog has inflicted on somebody or another animal. Sometimes we get a lot of dog bites where they're killing other animals, smaller dogs or cats in the community, chickens. So we are really thorough in making sure that we get good resolutions on this. I just wanted to talk about dog barking a little bit. It's one of the most difficult complaints to investigate and corroborate and substantiate. A lot of people think if they just call in, oh, my neighbor's dog is barking, you guys solve that problem for us, go talk to them. Well, we can go and talk to them, but sometimes those dog complaints continue on. And it can be very frustrating for the person that's living next door to this barking problem. But what we see often is people will call in, they don't want to leave their name, they don't want to leave their information, they just want to tell us that they're being annoyed by this barking and we want them to solve the problem. So that can be frustrating for us, because if they don't want to leave their name, the courts don't necessarily allow, if we can't charge anybody just because somebody says that they're annoyed by the dog's barking. We need that person to come forward. We need them to keep a barking log. We need them to give a statement, and we need them to come forward with that information so that we can use that going ahead. We can go out and we can talk to them. We can educate them and ask them, to try and do something about it. But this tends to be one of our most difficult cases that we do investigate. Like I said, we have to have a barking log for the person, and the courts usually require about a 2-week period of that, statements, any video that's collected. So this is all part of the process. A court will not convict if the complainant is only able to say that the dog barks all the time or a lot, and it really bothers me. We need much more substantiated evidence, and that's what we need to work to try to bring forward.
The court also does not partake in anonymous. So if somebody says they don't want to be involved, they don't want their name out there, the court's not going to entertain it. And that's just case law from Supreme Courts.
So that's a little bit about the investigative side. I also just wanted to touch a little bit, in having a contract with the Nova Scotia SPCA, we also offer many, many services and programs to community members. And when we have officers going out into the field, we're talking with individuals, it really gives us a unique opportunity to discuss with community members about our programs and services. Services such as TNR, that TNR stands for Trap, Neuter, and Release. This is a program where we have people go out and they'll trap feral cats. There's colonies of feral cats, and I know a lot of people don't like to hear about feral cats. They can be a real nuisance, and yes, they absolutely can. But it is our goal to try and curb that a little bit so that if we send our vet teams out, they'll go out to a colony and they will spay and neuter all of the animals in that colony. So it reduces the population. The SPCA will not go out and euthanize colonies, but if there are healthy animals, we will spay and neuter them and we will stop the population from growing. If there are sick and injured animals, feral animals in that colony, we will euthanize them, but we've seen it drastically reduce the numbers of feral cat colonies with this program. Another program that we have is the PUP program, Preventing Unwanted Pets. So accidents happen. If a family has a litter of cats or kittens, they can contact the SPCA. We will take their puppies or kittens for them. We'll spay and neuter them. We'll adopt them out into good homes, and we will spay the mother for free and give her back to the family. So a lot of times people have pets, they're getting pregnant and they're having litters, often because they can't afford to have the animal spayed. So we'll spay them for free and give them back to the family. We offer low-cost veterinary service. We just opened up our first social enterprise veterinary hospital in Dartmouth, which is really great, and it also can service East Hants. It's not too far. Veterinary services are very expensive, and with like any business now, in our current state with the economy, many people cannot afford the proper veterinary care. We have subsidy programs where people can call in and let us know that they don't have the money for this, and we have a subsidy that we can offer them. The palliative care program, a lot of people think that when animals come into the SPCA, if they're an older senior dog, that we're going to euthanize the animal, or even healthy animals. They don't understand that the SPCA does everything that we can to make sure that the animal will receive all the veterinary care it can and get a new home. Palliative care means it could be a senior dog that still has lots of time left, but it does have some medical needs that they'll need going forward. The SPCA will give this animal, whether it's a cat or dog, to a loving family. We will still provide all of the veterinary care, the specialized food, and all they have to do is provide the loves, and they come back for free veterinary care, free vet visits, for whatever amount of time that animal has left. Pause and Support is one of our most increasing programs that we have. It's a program designed for anyone that is fleeing situations of domestic violence, and they don't want to leave their home because they're afraid that the abuser or somebody in the family is going to harm the family pet, or they don't have a place to go because they can't take their pet with them. What we will do is we will take their animals into our care for usually a period up to 30 days. We have extended it longer depending on the circumstance. We will give them all the veterinary care that they need. We'll spay and neuter them for free if that's necessary. And we'll keep them so that they can, if they need to go into shelter, they need to secure some other housing. And it's just a way that they can feel safe and while their animals are being kept with us. So they can get out of that situation. And we've taken animals like, in a 6-hour notice, sometimes in a 12-hour notice. We get calls from Crown Attorney. We get calls from shelters saying we have this person, they need some urgent support for their animals, and we take them in and care for them. We also have a pet pantry that's available for community members if they're experiencing hardship and they need some temporary relief for pet food. So we'll deliver all kinds of food to, you know, whoever needs it. We get all kinds of calls. You can come into any one of our shelters and you can request some food, and there's no questions asked. We'll just give that out to anyone who needs it. So we do get lots of donations, and we're very happy to help out the community with these hard times. So that's just a little bit about us and how we feel that, you know, we're able to benefit the community and benefit the animals in the community through all of these programs and services. And, you know, we've been very happy to be part of helping East Hants and this partnership. So yeah, with those submissions, I'm open to any questions.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Joanne, and Greg, thank you for being here today. We do have a few people up to speak. First up is Councillor Rhino.
Thank you very much, Joanne, for that. And Greg, I've talked to you on the phone, and I'm finally pleased to put a face to the voice. So, anyway, thank you very much. Just a couple of things. Breed abandonment. To have, you know, do you keep a record on that? I know it's probably a hard thing to keep a file on, but is that prevalent within East Hants? Pet abandonment?
Oh, we absolutely keep records of that. So pet abandonment falls under the provincial legislation, the Animal Protection Act. And so we get calls daily, weekly about animals being abandoned in homes. And we're finding even recently our numbers are going up. So since COVID, you know, I think everybody seemed to get a lot of pets and, you know, with COVID, and they are staying at home. We are seeing increasing numbers, especially cats left in apartments. They're getting evicted. They can't keep them. They're going to a place where they can't take their pets with them. So we are seeing an increasing number of pet abandonments, and we do have a database and have all those numbers.
Okay, thank you for that. And I'm gonna kind of put this out there. I don't know if you can answer it or not. Breed banding. Do you see a benefit or a deterrent, or what's your thought on breed banding, especially in the dog area?
Yeah. We don't necessarily support breed bans, and it's because we're heavily involved in all of the aspects that happen when, you know, if it's a dangerous dog situation. You know, some places have tried to ban pit bulls or pit bull type dogs, the Cane Corsos, or and we don't necessarily see that works. We would like to see stronger pet ownership responsibilities, and we think that would be a better way of controlling aggressive dogs that may be a threat to the community, as opposed to just banning the breed.
Yeah.
In my opinion, because I do handle various municipal contracts, and in my opinion, East Hants has one of the strongest animal control bylaws that we can enforce. East Hants is very fortunate in the sense that East Hants' bylaw is formatted that we can implement conditions on those people. So, case in point, there's some jurisdictions I enforce and I can't put any conditions on it. All I can do is lay a fine. Well, I could lay 100 fines against somebody. It doesn't mean that they're going to be accountable to them. So, but the conditions in East Hants allow them to be accountable to it. And with that, I have pursued further action in the court because they've not abode by those conditions.
Well, I guess that, for me as a counselor, that's great to hear, because, you know, we don't know what other jurisdictions are doing, and hopefully we're heading in the right direction and have some teeth. And, why I brought that up is you continually hear that on the news, breed banding and so on with the dog bites and stuff. And it's interesting to hear, you know, your thoughts of it. And that's why I brought this up. And I kind of thought maybe you'd skirt away from the answer, which you didn't. You gave an opinion and how you look at it. And I really do appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Rhino. Next up, Councillor Eisner.
Thank you, Chairperson. Should a resident call municipality of a dog problem or a cat problem, or SPCA, or could they call the other one? Does it matter for problem?
Yeah, I suppose it depends on what kind of a problem it is. If it's something that we can address under the bylaw, I think the way it happens in East Hants is they do call a number that gets forwarded to our enforcement line, and we would address that problem. If it's a cat problem, it's probably not the best way to do because there's no cat bylaws in East Hants. So if it's because somebody's cat is roaming into our property and it's peeing on our furniture or, up on our vehicle, we can't necessarily enforce that because there's no bylaw that states cats can't roam. We could have a conversation with the owner, but there's nothing that we could actually enforce. If it's for the welfare of the cat, absolutely, they could call the cruelty line for the SPCA, and we could address that part of it.
They could also call the line on the municipal site too, and it would filter through, it would ultimately filter through me, and then I could figure that out too, so.
There's that dual hat thing. It's great that Greg is appointed under the provincial legislation as well as municipal, because if it doesn't fall municipal, he can then address it. So it helps it prevents community members from having to go through several different organizations.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair? I was just going to point out, in addition to a telephone call, we also have an online complaint form, and that goes straight to the SPCA as well as us receiving it, so we don't have to forward anything. It's a very direct way to contact them as well.
Thank you, John. Yep, that's a great piece of information. Next up, Councilor Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the presenters, the picture of the barking dog, what could you do for that dog in respect of his living conditions, and also if it has an owner, how do you make that dog's life better?
Do you want to?
Yeah, so I can address that. So right there, there's a set, so we have the Animal Protection Act, and then under the Animal Protection Act, there's a set of regulations.
Right.
So the regulations is specifically for basically living conditions of dogs and cats. And in this right here, so one thing that we take in consideration when we look at one of these is we're going to look at primarily the breed of the dog here. So obviously this isn't a dog where it's, a Newfoundland mix or a Pyrenees or something where it's going to be able to withstand that weather. So it does need something more adequate than that shelter. So that shelter I can see plainly, it's not preventing the dog from being exposed to inclement weather. It's got some sides to it and stuff, but essentially what I boil it down to when I'm talking to a normal citizen is I'm saying your shelter should be watertight. So, it's no different than you being exposed out in the rain. You're not going to like it just as much as your animal is. And if you're intending on keeping your animal outside unattended and you can't bring your dog inside, you need to have something that's watertight. Now, the regulations don't say, quote unquote, a doghouse. It says a shelter. So a shelter can be a vary of sizes and forms. But as long as it meets the set of regulations that we have set out, that's really what that matters. And what I always tell people too is that your house counts as a shelter. So if you're leaving your dog outside and for an X amount of 5 minutes, but you're home, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a doghouse because your home counts as a shelter. It doesn't say doghouse. So for that, I would educate too. I mean, it's hard to tell on this picture of whether or not it's tethered. There's regulations on tethering too. So there's regulations on how long a tether can be. And there's regulations on how long a dog may be out on a tether. And a simple thing I say to residents, because they say, oh, well, short is good. And I say, well, listen, if you're out there and your dog is unattended, if a coyote comes up or something, do you really want your dog on a 5-foot chain and it can't defend itself? Do you much rather that dog be on something that's longer so that it can defend itself so it has a chance? And it ensures the safety of the dog too, in that sense too. So it's not getting in obstructions. It's not inadvertently hurting itself in a manner.
Is there a follow-up to your visit?
Yes, so in this sense, in this occasion, I would most likely what's what we call an order to comply, which is a legal order compelling somebody that you have to abide by these regulations. So depending on the circumstance, and every circumstance is different, I give the people a certain period of time in order to complete that standard. I will go and do a recheck on that standard to ensure that there's a level of compliance made. So sometimes I go out there and part of it's done, but they interpret it in a different way. And so I'll have to educate them again on something that, okay, well, maybe let's try to improve this. Let's keep working on this. There's some cases I go to where it's a 3-month process of compliance. So going out there every week, every 2 weeks, ensuring that's what's going on. And I'm very flexible with people for the most part, as long as someone is trying and willing to do what they can. That's my main motivation. Now, if somebody's being non-compliant, completely non-compliant, that's where our teeth kind of comes in as peace officers, where we can start to enforce things a little bit harsher in the sense of summary offense tickets, or worst case scenario, we would seize the animal.
Do you guys follow up with, see the dog is registered with dog tags, or is that something the municipality would be doing?
So that covers part of our bylaw too. So usually in East Hants, if I have a cruelty situation I'm going to, it's not a bylaw complaint. I will go out there and I will usually ask the resident, if I'm in that jurisdiction, do you have your dog registered with the municipality? If they say no, I advise them. I say, well, listen, under the bylaw, you are obligated to register your dog. And I kind of give them an angle on it in the sense that, because most people have the perception it's kind of a nuisance, and I say, listen, it's a benefit for you, because if your dog gets loose and I pick it up or another citizen picks it up, all they have to do is call us with that 4-digit number that's on it. We look up the phone number that's registered with it, which is supposed to be updated annually, so most likely it's going to be an updated address and phone number, and we get the dog reunited with the home as soon as possible. There's lots of times where somebody will have it contained and they call me with the tag number, and I can call the owner and within 5 minutes their dog is reunited, because let's face it, I mean, mistakes happen. A lot of time it's not malicious.
And on the second picture, the dog roaming at large, you would keep that dog until it's completely healthy, and then it goes up for adoption?
Yeah, this particular dog, nobody did come forward for it, so we kept it. It was quite senior as well. This dog took an extensive amount of medical care to get it back. He never really did grow all of his hair back, but he did grow some of it back. But dogs with severe skin conditions like this, that's not necessarily mange. I believe it was like allergies. So if they have allergies to food or fleas, we call it a flea dermatitis, usually they have to go on a course of antibiotics, steroids to calm their skin down from all the scratching. Secondary infections happen. So it can take a considerable amount of time to help this. But his name is Decker. He did actually get a home, and he went into palliative care. So we continue, because he was going to require a lot of medical attention, and we don't like to put that on somebody. We just want somebody to be able to come forward and say, yes, I'll keep this dog, but I just can't afford all the medication. We still continue to supply the adopters with the medication and the follow-up vet treatments. And he's still living his life, as far as I'm aware. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing nothing else, nobody else left to speak. Thank you very much for your presentation today, and thank you for the great work you do for both the residents and the animals in East Hants.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Next up on the schedule is going to be setting our calendar for 2023. Off to the CAO.
Can I just bring it up, Shirley? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your calendar for 2023, if you can believe that, has been drafted. It's been attached to the agenda, and Shirley has it up on screen. There are only a few exceptions to make. In the calendar, everything is fairly standard, set with your third Tuesday of committee and last Wednesday of the month, or week after that, sorry. For council, the exceptions in this particular year are February. We had to adjust those to keep council meeting in February, just the way that the dates landed. If you wanted to, you could bump that up a week, but your February council meeting would actually be in March. So it's up to you. March, we've adjusted the calendar to accommodate for March break. In May, we've adjusted the calendar to accommodate for FCM, the FCM conference. And in December, we've adjusted the calendar to accommodate for Christmas. I would also suggest that, based on your conversation this morning at Police Advisory, that perhaps before we get into budgets, where we start to use some of those extension meetings, if you wanted to add to your calendar January 19th, which would be the committee extension that is not currently set aside for budget. If you wanted to set that aside for a workshop with your police advisory group for the consultation that the RCMP was looking for, and then we would arrange further consultation with some of our other community groups, such as the Chamber of Commerce and whatnot, but starting with the members of your advisory council.
So we had a motion CAO coming out of police advisory that staff work in liaison with. So this is something we could just continue on with through that motion and be sent out via email. Correct?
You can do that, or you could mark it for the 19th of January. That would be my recommendation at this point.
Yeah, we don't know if the police are available for that date or not. So that date would work, but we just want to make sure that the RCMP are available and that the members of the RCMP that the committee would like to speak to are available. I would suggest that's probably not to step on the police advisory committee's toes, but from the conversation this morning, I think the school liaison officer would be one of the ones that they'd want at that meeting as well.
Through Mr. Chair, if there's no recommendations to alter the calendar at this point, I would look for a motion to approve the calendar as drafted.
Moved by the warden, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. Seeing no discussion, be looking for the question. Question's been called, we'll go to the vote. And all the votes are in, and it's passed unanimously. Thank you very much for that. We'll now look for a motion to move into camera to discuss a land issue. Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Hebb. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, we will now move into camera, discuss a late. Good to go. All right, I'd like to report that we met in camera to discuss the land issue, and I'll turn the floor over to Councillor Tingley.
Okay, I'm going to move that Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommends to council to authorize staff to award FBM, Turner Drake, and Englobe an amount of $41,007 plus HST to complete preliminary development consulting services for the former Elmsdale School site and former Lance School site, and to authorize staff to explore conceptual development options that include Lance Volunteer Fire Department and the Elmsdale Schools community tenants.
Seconded by Councillor Net. Any discussion? Questions been called? Questions been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion has passed unanimously. That brings us to the end of the morning session. I will be looking for a motion to adjourn for lunch. Moved by Councillor Rhino, seconded by Councillor Hebb. All those in favor? We are adjourned to reconvene at 1:30.